All right. Well, good afternoon, church. Good to see you guys all here in person, and those who are joining us online. We're excited you guys are joining us too. You guys probably know many of our church members are not here right now. They're all in Southern California. They were there last week for basketball and a bunch of other sports, and then this week they're there for badminton and tennis and some other sports too. I still haven't heard from them yet, which means if they don't tell me any updates, probably they're just having a lot of fun, but maybe they haven't moved on to the next round yet, so they haven't updated me on how they're doing in the tournament here. But I heard that they're loving it. They get to meet with all the other churches. They got connected to like all the other Vietnamese churches out there too. So they're actually having a great time of just bonding and fellowship together. So hopefully next year more of us can go together. I know a bunch of churches, including their EM, went to support and cheer and like just kind of held up flags and stuff for our team. So maybe next year our entire church will go up together to kind of partake in this, okay? So we are continuing in our series called Heroes of Faith, where we've been looking at a lot of the different heroes in the book of Hebrews chapter 11. We're looking at Old Testament models and how to live New Testament lives as we study through the book of Hebrews. And we want to look at what it means to live by faith. And I believe that this is relevant for all of us because how you live is going to determine how you leave. And I forgot my pointer here. But I'll say that again. This matters on how you live your faith because how you live is going to determine how you leave. In Chuck Colson's book, The Good Life, he tells the story of a guy named Bill Bright, who's the founder of Campus Crusade. You guys know Cru. They're really big on college campuses, and those who are going to college, I recommend them to you as well. But in his book, The Good Life, as talking about Bill at the end of his life, Chuck Colson writes this in his book. He says, in his final days, Bill Bright gave his staff a charge, which ended with these words: by faith, walk in his light, enjoy his presence, love with his love, and rejoice that you are never alone. He is with you, always to bless. Bill Bright understood that the good life means accepting that ultimately our lives belong to God. And perhaps as a result of his attitude, and I have to think his godliness, his last moments were not the unmitigated horror his doctor had predicted. Right before Bill died, Vonette, who is Bill's wife, leaned close and said, I want you to go to be with Jesus, and Jesus wants you to come to him. Why don't you let him carry you to heaven? She looked away, and when she looked back, her husband was no longer breathing. She saw the last pulse in his neck, and with that he was gone. She thought of the psalm, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints, and the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, for it is in dying we are born to eternal life. Living the good life means not only living it to the fullest every moment we're alive, but also facing death with equanimity and then dying well. A lot of people have this wrong. They think that you live life to the fullest and enjoy every moment you can, and then when death comes, you simply accept the hard fact. The good time is over. Life is ended. The good life means accepting that our lives ultimately belong to God. You see, how you live your life now is going to determine how you're going to leave. Who you walk with is going to determine who you're going to call in times of trouble. Last week, we looked at Abel's life, and we looked at what it means to worship in faith. Right? We saw that to worship God means to worship him the way that he prescribed and us giving him our best. Today, we're going to look at Noah's life, and we're going to see what it means to walk with God in faith. And we're going to read Hebrews first and then Noah's story in Genesis 6. So if you could stand with me as we read Noah's story together as reference for the Word of God, and we'll read it together. We're in Hebrews 11:7 today. Hebrews 11:7, ready? 1, 2, 3 reads, by faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, is reverent fear constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. One more. Genesis 6, 9 to 14 reads, "These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch." That is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. All right. So we're going to see through Noah's life 3 things on what it means to walk in faith. First, you're going to see that to walk in faith means if you're going to walk with God, you're going to have to walk against the culture. If you're going to walk with God in faith, you're going to have to walk against the culture. In verse 9 to 11, we're given a description of the environment and the context that Noah was in, right? As he tried to walk with God. We're told that these are the generations of Noah. Noah was righteous man, blameless this generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons. But verse 11, we're told the context. We're told that the earth was corrupt in God's sight, that the earth was filled with violence, right? In other words, Noah walked with God even though nobody else around Noah walked with God. Did you catch that? That the earth itself was filled with corruption, right? That the rest of the world was walking in the direction of pleasure and promotions and hostility towards God. And Noah is walking towards the woods, chopping gopher woods, right? Noah is walking completely opposite directions from the culture. And just imagine the pressure that Noah would feel at work, how he would feel at home, and how he would feel in his community, right? Imagine that God says, "Hey, Noah, go and chop some wood and build an ark because there's going to be a flood." Even though probably during Noah's time, they have no idea what a flood is, right? They probably haven't seen a flood yet. So this is like brand new to them, right? God's like, build an ark. There's going to be a flood. He's like, okay, God, right? And then imagine that as he's chopping wood, imagine all the mockery that he has to face. His neighbors coming up to Noah and be, "Hey, Noah, like, what you got plans on Sunday?" He's like, "Oh, I got to go chop some wood because God told me so." And then they're probably like, "Come on, like, really? Like, you really believe that? Like, you're really going to spend all of your time building a boat on dry land, hundreds of miles from the sea? Like, are you really going to do that?" Right? Can you imagine the pressure that Noah feels when he tries to obey God and walk with God? And the world that Noah lived in is not so different from our world today, especially if you live in the Bay Area here. Like, everyone, right, can be open about anything, right? Like, we want to be woke nowadays. Everyone can be open about anything, but as soon as you mention Christianity, there's suddenly this like awkwardness that just permeates the air, right? Like you have a conversation with your friends and you'll be like, "Oh, you're Buddhist? That's cool. Oh, you're a Muslim? Oh, that's cool. Like, oh, you're LGBTQ plus minus plus plus plus? Oh, that's cool, right? Like, oh, you're like they, them? Oh, that's cool. Oh, you don't believe in God? Oh, that's cool. Oh, you're a Christian?" And all of a sudden, like, you feel awkward. You feel pressure to not do some more, right? And more, the culture seems to have this huge pressure upon us to not walk with God, to not share our faith, to not share our values, because we're afraid that somehow if we share our faith, we're going to offend people. You feel the pressure from your friends say, "Come on, let's hang out on Sundays." And you're like, "No, I can't. I got church, and my church has service at 1:30, so you can't even go play football," right? You had missed the, what's the Taylor Swift concert? I don't know if you guys went to that. Everyone was going. Literally today, everyone was wearing a Taylor Swift shirt everywhere I went. Went to a coffee shop, like, there are 10 girls in there with, like, Taylor Swift shirts. Like, it's everywhere, okay? And then you feel the pressure from some of your family members. Some of your family members might be saying, like, "Man, you're spending too much time with church. Like, you're spending way too much time with church. Maybe you feel the pressure from your work and from your school environment. But do you realize that to walk in faith requires you to resist the pressure that's coming from the outside? That for you to walk with God, you need to resist the pressure that you're in, this environment that you're in. It's kind of like a submarine. Like a submarine is designed to be under pressure, right? Like a submarine is meant to force back pressure from the outside. And two important things need to happen for a submarine. One, the material needs to be strong enough to withstand the pressure from the outside. But then the inside of the submarine needs to also be pressurized. So the internal pressure from the submarine needs to actually be able to resist the external pressure coming from it, from the outside. And if you don't have that, right, so the deeper the submarine goes, the stronger the pressure that's coming from the environment, and the stronger pressure you need from the inside to push back on it. So then what happens when there isn't enough internal pressure? Well, you guys probably heard news of the Ocean Gate scenario, right? It imploded upon itself, right? Like when the pressure from the outside is too high and there's not enough pressure to resist the pressure from the outside, it gets squished and collapses completely. And the reason why so many Christians' faith collapse is because they do not have enough pressure to walk with God from the inside compared to the pressure that's coming to them from the outside. That they do not have that internal desire to really honor and walk with God. And when they don't have that, as soon as pressure comes, as soon as your friend or you change schools or you go to college, or as soon as pressure comes, your faith just collapses in itself because you haven't created the internal pressure to withstand that. And so to walk in faith means that you need to have the internal pressure to walk with God. And that pressure needs to be greater than the pressure that's coming from the outside. Like, I'm here to try to give you some pressure as we're going through the heroes of faith. As we look at the heroes of faith and how they live their life, you should feel a little bit convicted. You should feel a little bit pressured. You should feel like, oof, I'm not quite living the way in faith that I would. But I'm trying to give you that pressure. I'm trying to pressurize you from the inside so that you can actually resist the pressure from the outside to collapse your faith. Noah was not like his generation. I mean, of course, he's got his own problems too. Like if you read throughout if you continue reading Genesis, like, dude's got problem, okay? Dude's got a lot of problem. But that's a sermon for another time. But at least one thing Noah did right. He walked with God, and that meant he had to walk against the culture. Second, you're going to see that walking with God is actually long-term. That to walk with God means it's long-term. Like most people, they want God to walk with them, but they don't want to walk with God. But that's not how it works, okay? Like to walk with God means you go in His direction, not God going in your direction, right? And walking implies that there is progression and movement towards a destination one step at a time. In other words, your faith is measured by your foot, not your feelings. Okay, your faith is measured by your foot, not your feelings. The Bible talks about walk of faith, not the talk of faith, not the feeling of faith. It's the walk of faith, right? It's measured by your movement, right? That your faith needs to have concrete movement in a certain direction daily. This is what Noah did in Genesis 6. In verse 22, we're told that after God told, Noah, I don't have that verse, sorry. When God told Noah to build an ark, we're told that Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. Right, that he did it. And do you know how long it took Noah to build his ark? Any guess? That's Bible quiz for Bible trivia, okay? Oh, 20 years? Close, kind of. It took about 130 years for Noah to complete his ark. And people back then lived longer, okay? But about 130 years to complete his ark. That means every single day for 130 years, Noah got up, he brushed his teeth, he ate some breakfast, and then he went outside, grabbed his axe, and he headed into the woods to chop some gopher wood. And then he lugged it back, and he started building this big box. Every single day for 130 years. His family would see it. His neighbors would see it. They're probably all making fun of him secretly. But he walked with God, and his internal pressure was greater than the pressure from the outside. So he continued to do this for 130 years. And that's what it looks like to walk in faith. That we are to walk with God daily, not just to visit him one time a week on Sunday. That's not walking with God, that's visiting God on Sunday, right? To walk with God means you are daily following him, that you're daily walking with him, right? To walk with God means every single day we get up, we brush our teeth, we eat our breakfast, and we obey what God has called us to do. And then we include him in all of our daily decisions. Step by step, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. And we are to move with our faith and head in a certain direction. But many of us have refused to walk with God, and we're just standing still in our faith. Many of us have walked a few steps with God, and we're kind of like, my son's 4 years old. He'll take 10 steps with me, and he'll be like, I'm tired. And he'll just stand there waiting for me to pick him up and carry him, right? But many of us have stood still. There's been no movement, no progression towards a certain direction. In fact, some of us probably even backslided. Like, God is walking in one direction, and you're doing the moonwalk, going backwards, right? You're not even walking with God anymore. You're just doing the moonwalk, going backwards. You're going back from where you started at this point, right? You're not even walking with God anymore. But can you imagine Noah building his ark every day? Some days, he's got to be wondering, God, you said there's just going to be this rain thing, but the weather forecast keeps showing sunny, right? With a little chance of cloud. And every single day he wakes up, and he's like, God, you say there's this rain thing. Maybe after year 1, he's excited, but then year 5, still no rain. Year 10, still no rain. Year 50, still no rain. Year 100, still no rain. You would think at some point in his walk with God, he's like, is this really happening? Is this really going to be the case? And maybe some of us are in that situation. Maybe some of us have been praying for a while now. Maybe some of us have been walking with God for a few years now. 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 years now. You've been walking with God, but then you've been wondering, is this really true? Is this really worth it? Is what you say really going to happen, God? Maybe some of you are in that situation right now where you've been walking with God and you're not seeing much happen, and you're beginning to wonder, am I wasting my time trying to obey God? And I think that's why the Hebrew writers included Noah in the heroes of faith. Because remember, Hebrews 11, look at what it says. We are told, my slides are off. Maybe my slides are not in the right order, but it's okay. Hebrews 11:7 says, by faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world and became an heir of righteousness that comes by faith. To walk with God means that you trust and you move forward, even if you don't know how it's going to work out, right? That God told Noah to build an ark, but he didn't give him any directions. He didn't even tell him when the rain was going to come. He didn't tell him how to navigate the boat. There's no directions on how to drive this ark, There's no GPS either. He didn't tell him how he's supposed to organize all the animals. He didn't tell him how he's supposed to organize and feed all the animals. God just told Noah, build an ark. He didn't give him much of anything information at all, but Noah in faith continued to build it day by day, year by year. And sometimes that's what it would look like to walk with God. That you don't have all the directions, that you don't know all the clarity, that you don't know exactly how everything is going to play out. All you know is God says, build this ark in front of you. And as you obey it day by day, week by week, year by year, God slowly reveals more and more and more and more. And so if you're in that moment where you're like, God, I don't know what's going on right now. I've been waiting. I've been praying. It's been a long time. I'm not sure. Can I just encourage you to continue to walk with God and don't give up on that? Because one day, it's going to be vindicated. And then third, you're going to see that to walk with God means that you are to work and witness at the same time. That you are to work and witness. In the book of 2 Peter, we're told that Noah was a herald of righteousness. Herald just means messenger. Okay, like hark the herald angels sing. It just means messenger. Okay, so in Noah's walk with God, not only did he work by building the ark, but he also witnessed as well. So every day in the morning, he goes and he chops wood, and then every night he's going into town and he's preaching about what his belief. And Noah probably only had one sermon that he preached over and over and over again, and the sermon title is probably, "It's gonna rain. It's gonna rain." That's probably his only sermon title. It's gonna rain, guys. It's gonna rain. That's all he had. That's his only sermon. And he preached it, and he made it known, and he made it clear what he believed. That everybody knew, his friends, his family, his co-workers, everyone in town knew that Noah was building an ark because he believed it's gonna rain. That's all he knew. And so to walk in faith means that you are to be working and witnessing at the same time. That your faith is supposed to be public. And that people know what you believe. That people know that by what you share and also by what you do. And I think this is a challenge I have for everyone in our church, in person as well as those listening online. If your coworker or friend accuses you of being a Christian, would your HR department have enough evidence? If you're being accused of being a Christian at work, would your HR department have enough evidence? Or are you a closet Christian? Do you realize the thing is, Christians are not called to be CIA agents. No, there's nowhere in the Bible where we are told to keep our faith hidden. We are called to walk in faith, where people can see you making decisions based on your relationship with God every day. And listen here, in today's society, everyone else is coming out about what they believe. Everyone else is coming out of the closet. Do you realize that? Everyone is coming out of the closet, right? LGBTQ, they, them. Then we should be coming out of the closet too and share what we believe. If everyone else is being loud about what they believe in, if everyone else is trying to tell my kids what to believe, if they can be so bold and loud and talk about what they believe, then I surely am not going to stay silent about my faith. Especially if I'm walking with the Creator and Redeemer God. If everyone else is coming out of the closet, you might as well come out in the closet about your faith too. Why are you all of a sudden being silent when the rest of the world is being loud about what they believe in? Church, we need to make our walk with God clear in a hostile environment if you're going to be able to walk with God long term. You need to have the internal pressure to walk with God so that you can withstand the external pressure trying to squash your walk with God. And if you don't have enough of that pressure, your faith will collapse when pressure comes from the outside. Because when you walk with God, as Christians, we believe that one day what we believe, that we will be validated and vindicated. Because how you live is going to determine how you leave this world. As we're close to wrapping up in Genesis chapter 7, just one chapter over, we are told that the Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation." One day, in year 130, Noah wakes up, usually in the same time as in the morning. Noah brushes his teeth, he eats his breakfast, he goes out to pick his axe, and as he walks out, he hears bloop, and then bloop, and then bloop, 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 in Genesis 7:12, we are told, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month on the 7th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The rain came, and Noah's walk with God was made clear and proven true. And because Noah had walked with God every day, despite people making fun of him, every day he was working on the ark and witnessing in town, do you realize that Noah's family ended up becoming saved as a result of Noah's walk with God? Hebrews 11:7 once again says, "By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world and became an heir of righteousness that comes by faith." As we end, I want to share with you why Noah's story is relevant for you and I, and why it should affect how we live our lives. God says the flood of judgment is coming, and you are to build an ark, which is the New Testament for the church. We are to walk with God, that we are to wake up, brush our teeth, eat our breakfast. We head to church every Sunday, even when people were thinking we're wasting our time. Every day, we include God in our decisions. We walk against the culture. We share about our faith because we believe that God's word will come true one day, and that one day his church will be the salvation of our friends and family. And here's where it gets really interesting as we end. You realize that right before God gives Noah the measurements to the ark, he has one very special command that most people miss when they read Genesis chapter 6. Genesis 6:14 reads, God tells him, "Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make room in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch." Pitch is the thing that you use to seal up the ark so that water does not get in. But what's interesting is that the root word, and the Hebrew root word for pitch in Genesis chapter 6, is the same Hebrew root word for atonement. In other words, Noah's family was saved not because of Noah's righteousness, but what kept the flood waters out was the pitch of atonement that sealed them safely. And that's what we get to proclaim as a church, that it is not the church that saves, but only through the atoning sacrifice of Jesus Christ. That it's his blood is what seals us and keeps us safe from the flood of judgment that is coming towards each and every one of us. And so how you live will determine how you leave. And for Christians walking with God, with the assurance that they are now sealed and secured through Jesus' atonement, we can live with confidence now and with confidence when the end arrives. And I pray that we as a church will be filled with people who want to walk with God in faith.